There's a lot to talk about in terms of the different issues that she delved into. Do we want to like start off with just an overall impression? It's the wife of the president. She's going to give a speech. I don't think that expectations were necessarily super high. I mean, she's not one of the spouses that stays super involved in politics and everything. Be best to the side, I guess. What did you think overall of her speech?
I think she would have been better off plagiarizing again this year like she did 4 years ago, because man, that was one of the most painful experiences of the night. Like, honestly, I appreciate that it wasn't riddled with complete fabrications and lies. But at this point, I would have taken some entertaining lies more than that 30. How long was it, by the way? It was.
I think it was probably like 20 minutes or so, 22 minutes or so. Yeah, and I know I can see from our producers in the Slack, it dragged a little bit in the middle, and I'm not gonna lie.
At the beginning and at the end.
Yeah, I might have been browsing an auction that's coming up for some Jurassic Park filming memorabilia. But anyway, I did hear a lot of it. And so, look, I will say it was obviously, I think it's fair to say, pretty incredibly boring, but I think it was probably the best speech of the convention and probably will be the best speech of the convention, because while everything about who Donald Trump is and what he cares about and all of that was obviously false, and not just it is false. She doesn't believe that stuff about him. I felt like this stuff, like she talked about a lot of topics that no other speaker has brought up nor likely will. I mean, she actually expressed empathy for those who have died during the pandemic and those who have lost people in the pandemic. That is something that Donald Trump has done maybe 15 seconds of since the pandemic began. And she did it in the first minute, basically. She talked about the protests, sort of. A lot of it was bad, but some of it maybe could be interpreted as understanding. Like, she actually sort of seemed to acknowledge what was going on in America in a way that no other speaker has or is likely to.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. I think maybe I just kind of tuned out there somewhere in the middle and didn't get many of the specifics. But I just did get the general sensation that that she was being authentic, right? I have to give her that. She was being true to herself. Some of those parts that you mentioned, I did hear, and I did wonder, did his team edit this? Because it did show a level of empathy that I haven't heard from anyone else in this convention. So I'm really curious as to how much input their staff had on this particular speech.
Yeah, I would have to assume quite a bit. And look, I think that everyone gets a lot of help in writing their speeches, and someone who is only really known for plagiarizing speeches, I'm going to assume got a lot of help with the speech. But I know that like the family members, one of the things that traditionally they do in events like this is they seek to humanize and add a human element. Now they've decided not to do that with most of the speeches. Most of the speeches from Trump family members are, take any random 2 minutes from a Fox News show and they're just reading those talking points. Right. But I feel like she actually did try to do that. Not only talking about him and trying to invent positive characteristics and say that he has them, but to literally stand in as a person that seems to care about things. Yeah, she hasn't done a great job of that necessarily throughout being first lady, but in comparison to Trump, she can imply that she cares that people have died and seems to care about it. As long as you don't see that classic jacket of hers. They use that in the montage of her. I don't know if you noticed that, but they only shot it from the front. She's talking about how much she cares while wearing a jacket that says that she doesn't.
Yeah.
So look, she acknowledged the pandemic. Yes, she did call it the invisible enemy, which is like the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. But to be fair, that's Donald Trump, so she's gonna support him in that. And she did speak about it in the past tense, as others have who have mentioned it. So that's like the downside. But the fact that she would even admit, like she acknowledged that people died. And that is not something that is gonna be common at this event.
I mean, and you have a great point, but the fact that that is that's the bar, right? That really shows you how broken this entire thing is. But when you mention the role of the family member who their role is to humanize the other person, then maybe immediately think of Jill Biden. right? And comparing what we just suffered through for 20 minutes to what Jill Biden did and how she really did humanize Joe Biden in a way that really even cut through to my dead carcass of a soul. Like I really was like, for a minute there, I felt some connection and empathy with Joe Biden because of how good Jill Biden's speech was. If you compare it to that, Melania really absolutely just kind of bombed on a level that is immeasurable because of how well Jill Biden actually did, specifically in that role that you said, humanizing the politician. And perhaps I think the problem really is it's difficult to humanize somebody like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean that's about as hard as any possible person I can see you trying to do that for. And look, let's acknowledge that she had the advantage of the fact that she was speaking to a crowd because of course they didn't socially distance. They got a crowd together and like 2 people had masks. Because again,
I think they thought they were social distancing though. You see how they had like 2 feet or 3 feet. I think they're going to say that they social distanced.
And look, it's outside. That's something, I guess. On the other hand, her delivery was obviously, it was horrendous, but it's not her first language. So like she gets a lot of points for that. I don't know who exactly said it, but she probably did better than Jill Biden would have done in Slovenian. Like if she had tried to do that. So look, let's give her that. But obviously, just about the most brutal thing that you can imagine is when you stop for an applause line and it takes 4 seconds for everyone to realize that it's an applause line. And then you're just like, oh no, it's Jeb Bush all over again.
Oh man.
Oh God, I get that feeling like when I start to watch Scott's Tots. It's just like, oh no, make it stop. But again, it's not her first language. So I don't want to be unfair.
Well, I just, I'll be the bad guy here, John. I'll be the bad guy because the thing is that Melania, that's her disposition. Like the jacket that she wore where she said, I really don't care. That's her character. At least that's the character that she exudes, whether she tries to or not. That's what we see. That's how it comes off. And so, whether it's her first language or not, she delivered that speech, in my opinion, the same way it matched her disposition that she really doesn't care.
Yeah. And look, there's gonna be a little bit of that is gonna flow through into like, when we're in the middle of this terrible pandemic, the worst like domestic crisis that God forbid that we will have for the rest of our life. I don't want to hear about your stupid rose garden, honestly. Like the fact that you spent money on that, are you crazy? And I've seen side-by-side shots. I'm not a botanist or anything, but no, the old one is better. But anyway, yeah, no, I don't want to hear about you renovating the building. Like I don't give a damn about that. Like people are losing their homes, they're losing their businesses, they're losing their lives. Yeah. So it's got strong like let them eat cake vibes to that.
Yeah.
But I do think while the delivery was poor and all of that, she's not a public speaker, she's not a politician. If a random person were to tune in to any 8-minute chunk of the convention tonight, if they tuned into hers, it would feel the most like a regular American convention speech that you have someone who knows the person and they seem to care about the supposed dignity of the office. None of it remains, but they're pretending that it does. She's talking about the fact that we still face these crises, not just the ones that I've already mentioned, but she talked about the opioid crisis and all of that. Like she did her best to try to express empathy on a range of topics that people are still suffering from. And that is, again, the bar is so low, that is way beyond anything you got from Eric or Don Jr. or even Rand Paul. She seemed to actually care and she seemed to have a better understanding of what the experience of regular Americans is than every other speaker tonight.
You know what, I'll give you that. I definitely would agree with that in a room full of sociopaths, she had the most empathy.
Yeah. Now, I was gonna wait until the members only because we're gonna go for about 12, 13 more minutes, and then we're gonna cut. We're gonna go to just members only and provide a little bit more analysis about the night. Maybe I'll do my overview then. I just want to say one more thing about this. And look, hey, I've given her a lot of credit on things, right, everybody? So I can be a little bit critical. Think about all that she knows as she's standing up there giving that speech. So I gave her credit for acknowledging the pandemic. She knows how much worse it was than it needed to be. And she knows that it's her partner's fault. Like, I'm married. Imagine if I knew that like my partner's callous indifference had led to 120,000 deaths that didn't need to happen. Like, you're predisposed to love your partner and to give him the benefit of the doubt, but she knows that. She knows that he was ignoring it before it hit. He was talking down the concerns as it was, spreading across America. As more and more people started to die, he's talking about shoving lights inside of yourself and drinking bleach. And she had to see him every step of the way along that as the body count piled up. Just imagine that. And she's still telling people you need to vote for him. So again, she provided empathy. Let's acknowledge that. She also thinks that the guy that didn't care as so many Americans died deserves a second term. And that is a massive indictment of her. I get that it's her husband. If my wife killed 120,000 people, I'm just gonna say it, babe, I love you. I'm leaving you if you kill 120,000 plus people. And I'm assuming that 60,000 would have died. Maybe it would have been even less.
What's the threshold, John? Where's the cutoff point? Like how many can your wife get away with killing?
5,000. Maybe 5,000. You imagine like a really bad hurricane.
Okay.
But no, like, and she knows all of that. She was talking about like visiting like the kids and stuff. She knows about the cages. Like she's been there. Like she knows all of this stuff about him, and she's with him. And again, so I know that like people love the idea that secretly like she's like gonna turn on him or she doesn't really love him. And I'm sure that she doesn't actually love him. But the idea that she disagrees with them fundamentally, there is effectively no evidence of that. After literally years, there's no evidence that she is not lockstep with him on all of his worst excesses, his most murderous excesses.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely correct, right? So every step of the way, she has been complicit. And let's not pretend like she doesn't get a whole lot out of this, right? She gets whatever she needs, whatever she wants, because like you said, she knows everything. And so there's nothing that Donald Trump won't do. And you see the rejection that she gives him, like she doesn't want to hold his hand, she doesn't want any parts of him. So she's still there though for her own personal benefit and her own personal gain. So, and I only talk about this in context of a lot of some of the resistance liberals who try to make her out to be some type of heroine that is trapped and locked. And they had a hashtag rescue or free Melania, but she's there by her own free will and she's getting plenty of material benefits from it.
Yeah, she could have, if she wanted to leave him, she could have left him. Yep. She was given perfect opportunities for plausible deniability. After pick an adult film star. Well, after one of those, she could have left him, and everybody would have been very understanding. But she chose not to. So, yeah, I get the idea because it's kind of like Schadenfreude that he's involved in a loveless marriage. And again, I do probably think that it is, but that does not mean that she's against him. I mean, remember, as I'm sure a lot of people are tweeting right now, she was a birther through and through. Yeah. Back before like Trump, it's one thing to defend your husband, the president. It's another to go on national TV and say, oh yeah, all of his racist conspiracy theories, sign me up for those against the current president.
Yeah, that's her role. That's how she's been facilitating that role, and she's satisfied in it, man. She's like, you notice one thing that really stood out. She said, and in the next 4 years as first lady, like she said it with a level of confidence, like she's entitled to it. And later on, she kind of backtracked and said we'd be proud to serve, right? She kind of said it in a questioning kind of tone. But when she first said it, she was like, hey, I'm getting it next 4 years. I'm going to be your first lady. And so that shows you that she has an expressed interest in that. And I'm sure her interest in that supersedes any interest she has in Donald Trump personally.
Yeah, I mean, really, like if you think about it, whatever it was transactionally that she was going to get out of marrying Donald Trump, this is just a bigger, more public version of that. It's very similar. It's a money thing, it's a housing thing, it's a notoriety thing. And you can go on cool trips that she talked about, and you can see things in Africa and stuff like that. It's a very cool thing to be able to do, I guess. So a lot of people would find that to be very difficult to turn down, I think, given the chance and having lived in it for a few years already.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair. I mean, I think that's the fairest assessment. Like it is appealing, it is glitzy, it is glamorous on another level that even Donald Trump couldn't provide by himself. So I wonder how many people would be able to turn it down. And then really the question is how many bodies have to pile up before people walk away from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's looking like at least 200,000. Maybe we'll check in at 300,000 and see what she thinks about that. Let's see. Okay, so a couple other quick things. She talked about how while Donald Trump obviously doesn't do things like other presidents, he brings total honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, has anyone lied as much? I don't think so. I seriously don't think so. And she also said, she doesn't want to attack the Dems. And look, to be fair, she did not spend a lot of the speech attacking the Democrats. And I mean that in two ways. She didn't like specifically attack Biden a whole bunch, but she also didn't make the speech about the fact that the Democrats are coming to drag you out of your suburban home and make you stop worshiping Christ or whatever. Like she didn't do either of those things, but she also seems to have not been paying attention to the RNC so far because that's all that we've gotten, including from members of her family. So there's a weird disconnect on that topic, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it kind of fits, right? So the key word in what you just said was a disconnect from her family. I think she's disconnected from the Trump family anyway. I think she's like an island unto herself, her and Barron. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, and that's clearly a thing that she cares about. It's difficult to know for sure, even after seeing this speech, what it is that she really values. But by all accounts, supposedly that is one thing.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.